Please let me welcome Une Aina Bastholm.
Thank you. Can you all hear me properly? You can. Great. So I'll just get a little bit of help here to get our right presentation. I'm very, very happy to see you all here finally. We have been looking forward to this. And it's also to us a very perfect timing. As some of you might know, we have Pride Month, and today is the Pride Parade in Oslo, and the weather is good, so it will be a really, really great experience for everybody, I'm sure. But also, we're very, very happy as a non-EU member to be able to welcome you to Oslo and Norway only weeks after the very, very successful European election. Congratulations to all of you who were involved. And especially, some of the results are really great. Like Germany, France, Ireland, Finland, the Netherlands, Belgium. Come on, more of you. Really big, yeah. It's very inspiring to us, and also because the timing for you being here is perfect because we have our local elections in only 2.5 months here in Norway, which will be very important to us, obviously. And the polls are looking really good. Adil, my co-spokesperson, probably told you a little bit about it before, but if we're heading approximately where the polls are telling us right now, if that becomes the result, we are talking about the doubling of green mandates in municipalities and regions in Norway. That would be quite great for the planet and great for us. So, yeah, you have to sort of feel a little bit the joy of it, but unfortunately, the result is not there yet, so we still have to work for it. Have any of you seen this picture before? Some of the Norwegians, maybe. It's a very iconic picture to us, because one of the reasons, now we don't have it here anymore. One of the reasons is that one of the ladies in front is Lan Marie Berg, who's the most known green politician in Norway. Here to the left. And at this point, she had no political experience. But this is a picture of the day of the election, of the local election in 2015, where we went from 1 mandate in Oslo, and that's a very happy guy in the middle there, the small one, to 5 in the city, but also we were able to enter government. And that's to us, that has, it has been a very change in how the Greens are looked upon in Norway, because although I am the only member of parliament in Norway, in the Norwegian national parliament, and I'm sort of the underdog, the radical one green, you know. In Oslo, we are in charge of the city. And we are in charge of environment and transport and city development, areas that are really close to people and like people can see with their own eyes on their bike every day. So we have sort of become a party over the last 3 years that is looked upon as very controversial, obviously, to some, but also very powerful and honest. And what Lan is experiencing is also that there's aggressions and fear of green politics. I'll come back to that. Yeah, so this is what's our 2015, the real national breakthrough to us in Norway. I'll take one slide back. Here we are. This is Lan. Any one of you who are not from Norway, have you seen her before? It's just interesting because in Norway everybody would. And she's a politician that would be a sort of, you would make cartoons if you're not agreeing with her, and she would be a symbol of green politics that are actually run through and implemented, in contrast to how the green debate or the debate about climate policies had been in Norway for a lot of years, where everybody's talking about it, but no one is actually implementing what we need. And I don't know if some of you is familiar with what we're writing here, that it is a bit controversial to be green, but that is quite popular when you implement it. And in cities, it's especially visible because the policies are so close to people, right, in their everyday. So what we're seeing is that the fact that we can make the air cleaner, and we do, the fact that we can make transport more effective and offers better is visible. We're doing that. We're cutting carbon emissions in Oslo in a speed that no one has seen before. And kids now, they can bike in several places in Oslo to school where they couldn't before. So I'm trying to sort of mention this as often as I can, that yeah, it might be new to people, the way that we're sort of switching the whole hierarchy, you know, in the cities, from cars on the top to the people on the top. But it's very popular when you do it. And we're seeing that in Oslo from, for example, that 85% of Oslo citizens say that they do support what we call the bike plan, the bike lines plan, which actually also includes that you need to prioritize some of the parking places, or you need to remove the parking places and get the bike lines there instead. I'm told I only have 5 minutes. I only started. So what we're doing, this is important to me to say, what we're doing for the local election now is to make it very explicit that what is good to the planet is also good to people. Because in Norway, I bet the debate is a bit different in different European countries, but at least for Norway, green politics are quite new to people still. We're not used to green ideas and values in Norway, unfortunately. That's the reason why I'm only one of 169 MPs in Parliament. And we're often told, or we often question when we want to prioritize environment and climate for not wanting to think about the people. But what about the people? And obviously from the left we would hear more about social justice, which to some of us, for the Greens, for the Green Hearts, it doesn't make any sense, right? We've been concerned with social justice from the start, and that's the reason why we're so involved with climate change and focusing on it, in addition to what we're doing to nature as such. But this is really changing in Norway now. We can feel it, and we can see it on the pulse. We can feel it in the talks we're having with people. There's sort of, yeah, it's changing. And that's great. It makes us very optimistic. Short about the climate debate in Norway. Norway obviously is a big oil and gas exporter. We earn a lot of money on that, and we have a big oil fund, which gives us social security, which is nice to us, but it's money we've earned from boiling the planet, we say sometimes, from creating climate changes. So this is from one little a town in Norway called Skjåk. It's from the flooding last fall. And those floodings came after a summer, which many of us had, with drought, right? So the earth couldn't really handle all that rain. So what happened in Norway is that suddenly climate change came to us, in our lap. And we in the Greens, we were thinking, well, now people will be ready, right? Now people will be ready for the measures, for the goals, for like the bold green politics. But what happened, unfortunately, The 8th of October, when the special report from the UN came about 1.5 degrees goal, we also had our government launching their proposal for the national budget, the government budget, which didn't fit at all. As some said, they obviously hadn't read the report in advance, but obviously we knew what is happening to the planet in advance of that report, and it was easy to criticize this. But after that, we had one of the parties in Norway who had their big choice of whether it would enter government or not. And as you might know, we have a government where the Progressive Party, the far-right party, is in charge of the economics. They have the finance minister in charge of the transport and in charge of oil and gas and energy. And we were all hoping that they would use this opportunity to put demands when they're entering government for once, for real, on climate change, but they didn't. So that was a big disappointment. But then, to make a long story short, we had suddenly school strikes, we had Greta Thunberg, the youngs went to the streets. So this spring, the debates have changed. And it's, I think just by doing those physically going to the streets, sometimes it's just necessary for people to wake up, because the numbers, they don't reach the hearts. But your children striking from school because of our climate policies being so unfair, that enters our hearts. And that stays for a while as well. And there will be new strikes in Norway 1 week, is it 2 weeks before the local election? So that also gives us hope. We are an oil and gas country. This is important for us to tell you because gas is sometimes looked upon as a good transit to renewable energies. In Norway, that's the main, that's the sort of the main sentence you would always say if you want to defend the oil and gas industry in Norway. Gas it's important to get less of the energy from coal in Europe, so it would be less. It wouldn't be fair of us not to take this oil and gas up from ground and export it, because that would be worse for climate. And also the oil and gas economy in Norway is the reason why the climate debate, I think, has been a little bit different in Norway than in some of the European countries. That is one element. There's just immense incomes from oil in Norway. But also the fact that the energy we're using in Norway is renewable most of the time, because 99% of the power production in Norway is from hydropower, hydro plants. Which doesn't mean that the usage of the energy is 99% renewable all the time, right? Because we're in a market and we're trading. But it means that people sort of think in Norway that using energy is not that, it's not bad for climate, at least. It could be that the plants are bad for nature, like because they're, yeah, but not for climate. And that has made the whole debate a little bit, it just took us a lot of time before we got there, where we could see the oil economy and climate policies together and have a debate of them, how they're interconnected. And I would say that it was the Green Party in 2013 when we entered the government in Norway for the first time, 2013, that we actually managed to start that debate for real. And today, oil and gas industry in Norway loses public support every year. Anna, who's supposed to pay attention to me not talking too long, has has left the room. So I'm just okay. Someone should just tell me if I should be stopping soon. Okay, but this will be my last slide actually. I just wanted to mention also that this last week has been quite busy in our parliament because we closed the parliament for summer yesterday. And one of the things I just this week debated with the Minister of Transport from the Progress Party, as you remember, was how we can interconnect better with Europe. And when we say Europe, we mean the rest of Europe, right? To the continent by train. Because as some of you might have experienced when you tried to get here, it's not that easy by train. And you could say that while you could get to 20 different cities in Europe from Oslo in an hour or two by plane, you would take you 20 hours just to get to one city from Oslo by train. So we have a very big thing to do here, and we want to cooperate with the Swedes, obviously, but it would be great to have a common strategy on that one day if we're able to it. But obviously what we're definitely very happy to do with you this weekend is to discuss the politics of the green cities. I would say that although the European election and the national election we're having in 2021 are obviously very, very important for the systems and the structures, most likely cities are just as important, both for climate and for social justice, that we should be sure that people have. So I would say that what the local election we're having now also is just as important as the 2021 election we're having. Although that means that I will probably get some more company in Parliament, I'm able to say that. Okay. I am very happy that you're here. I hope you will enjoy your day, and I hope you will be able also to join our Pride Parade today to celebrate that we're different. Yeah, and in the Greens, I think we're very good at, we're experienced with celebrating that we're different. So we should be continuing with that, and I hope you will enjoy Oslo this weekend. Thank you.
So thank you, Ute. We are going to have a chance to give you opportunity to go to the Pride, because we suggested a small change in our program for today, and because we feel that that something is not really everyday opportunity to go to Pride in such a big and welcoming green city. So we postponed the afternoon session, which will not start at 2 o'clock, but start at 2:30. So you will have a chance during the lunch break to attend the Pride in the city center, which is not really far from here. You will see it in the app, as I think, not yet, but it's going to be there in the short time. Are we going to have it? Yeah. So this is the detailed information that the lunch break with networking opportunity will be a little bit shorter. Then you will have 1.5 hours to attend the Pride, and then we will start with the afternoon program. Yeah, and there's an opportunity to go all together, and we will leave from here at 12:40. So if you would like to join, we can go as a green group to the Pride. Well, and so Pride is in some form a celebration of diversity, and when I was thinking about the upcoming sessions we have on green successes in the cities, the only connecting line I found with our three guests is diversity. We have a guest who is deputy mayor of the big Nordic capital. We have a guest who is a local councillor in the mid-size city of Netherlands, which is really good in promoting biking. And we have a mayor from the very small town in German-speaking area of Belgium. And as you may know that being a mayor of the small towns means that you have to be expert on everything. As we can see, there is a lot of diversity, not only in the green policies that we promote diversity, but there is a lot of different approaches how to do the green politics in different way. You can do it in the big cities, small cities, and it works on all levels. As a first guest, I would like to invite Sanna Vesikansa, the deputy mayor of Helsinki. She's in charge of quite unusual issues, and it's social affairs and healthcare, which is not really common for the green politicians to be in charge of. And in Finland, the social issues and the healthcare on municipal level is a big issue because it could even tear down the government, as we've seen this year. So please welcome, and it's your time, Sanna.
Thank you. And good morning also to you, and really nice of meeting so many Greens from the city level, that we also in Helsinki believe that cities are going to be more and more important also in the dynamics of politics, really taking the lead and then pushing also the national level to act. And we have one example from Helsinki, hopefully that's also inspiring to you. A little bit of, let's see where it goes. Where should I point? There. A little bit of Helsinki. If you haven't been in Helsinki, we are a capital of 650,000 inhabitants, so I think exactly the same as Oslo. We have been in capital since, sorry, now I'm pointing to the, we have been capital since 1812, so recently new capital compared to many other European cities. Since Finland became independent, then of course we continue to be the capital. But very fast growing city. We are growing around 10,000 new inhabitants every year, both from abroad and from other parts of Finland coming to study, to work, to seek asylum. And we have been claiming that we want to be the city that still welcomes everybody and is part of the movement that is happening all around the world, that our urbanization is going fast. But then, of course, it brings challenges how to make the growth sustainable, both ecological, socially, culturally, economically, etc. That's the right. So Greens in Finland, I think we have been quite important in the Finnish politics for quite some time. We had one of the first ministers, 1995, when Pekka Haavisto became minister in Finland in the Finnish government. Now he's our foreign minister in the government that just started 2 weeks ago. So he will also lead European Union when Finland will be the chair starting from July. And also in Helsinki we have been growing and being the second largest party for quite some time. I have been city councillor for now 10 years, and we have been the second biggest party always. So we are important in the city politics. But what is actually most rewarding is that in the national elections that we had this spring too, we had the parliamentary election and then the EU election. Greens were the biggest in Helsinki in both of the elections. So in the next local elections, of course, we hope we will be the biggest. We will get the mayor's seat, but let's see. We still have to work for that quite a lot. But we have a very big city council, 85 members. And out of them we have 25 one members from the Green Party, and the biggest party, which is the moderate Conservatives, they only have 23. So we are very, very close at then. So we got the first deputy mayor already in the almost 20 years ago, Pekka Sauri. Maybe some of you have met Pekka. And the second one, who's Anni Sinnemäki, 4 years ago. And now, at the moment, we have 2 deputy mayors. I don't know where to point there. In Finnish city politics, we are divided in the way that we don't have an opposition and a government. So all the biggest parties are represented in the city board, which is the city government. And then we are the members of the city board. We lead each one of our divisions. And so Anni and me, we are the Greens. Then we have 2 moderate Conservatives and 1 Social Democrat. And that means, of course, that since we don't have the opposition and the government, we need to negotiate by issue, but then we also have to find things that we agree and we push together. And I think it brings also, we have been learning how to make it also very progressive, although it has, of course, some problems as well. I listed some accomplishments. Since we have been in important positions for a long time, it feels like, oh, I left out education, I left out this and that, but just some examples what we have achieved and what we see. And most important, of course, is the climate action. We made decisions during the winter in Finland, in Helsinki, that our goal in the city is that we will be carbon neutral by 2035. And all the parties agreed. No one was in opposition on this. And it was a big decision because now our new government nationally also made the same commitment. So I think we were actually pushing that also for the state level. Of course, this means, you see there is one of our power plants. We don't have the hydro energy as much as Norway has, so we have been very dependent on coal, especially during the central heating during the winter. But now we are going to, where do I point? Who knows where to point? Maybe there. Yeah. We are going to close one of the power plants by 2024, and this was really a big issue that we did. We were, of course, ones who were really pushing it, but then together with the NGOs really pushing this decision, and it of course means very big investments on bioenergy and wind and solar and many other things as well. So it was not easy. Then of course we think that we need to do other things as well. Anni, who's in charge of the buildings and city planning, she has been leading the energy efficiency, how to really keep it not on the minimum level, which is quite high in Finland also, but then really have norms that we can save energy and that we will have renewable energy sources. So this is a big transition also for the city. All the if you ever come to Helsinki, we have a lot of new tram lines going on. We have a new metro line, and we also made decisions that all the new areas can only be built on the spots where we have a very good public transportation system. So that was also an important principle to take. So there won't be a new suburbs that don't have either tram or metro or something very efficient public transportation. We are very proud of the city bike system that has been now in a study that it's the most used city bike system. So each bike we have in Helsinki, it's also used. It's not standing in there waiting for someone. And the share of the walking, bicycling, and public transportation, it's now 78% of all journeys made in Helsinki. But it's a steady, it means that we need to do a lot of investments. We need to prove that this is important and not to build new motorways, which the other parties sometimes tend to go back. Then also investments made both in culture and in the social and healthcare education field. So there we try to prove what is the green way, that we really need to also push for that. We just opened the new central library. This was a big political debate. Greens were pushing this. We were fighting that. We're asking for free contraception to all under 25-year-olds. And they did a civil initiative, and they were campaigning it very heavily. And so we did. In Helsinki, we made a decision, one of the first cities in Finland, and now many cities are actually following. Now in the new government plan for the whole country, this principle is there as well. So everybody who's under 25-year-old gets a free contraception, and it's part of the sexual and reproductive health. And what I'm personally very proud of is that the health counseling, sexual health counseling, the visits are very up. So, and what our experts say in the school health or elsewhere, they say that when young people come to talk about contraception, it's not only about contraception. They talk about other things in life, mental health, etc. And that's important as well. I know I need to rush. We also made a decision that that all the undocumented migrants, which are mostly the asylum seekers who didn't get approved, they will get health care from Finland, and that's also in the government plan, that we will have a law in Finland that everybody is getting the health care, and there we could also prove that what cities do first, then the national level will follow. But this has been extremely hot debate, and of course the populists have been pushing us that we will be now then open to all the world to come to seek for health care. That hasn't happened. Then of course housing is important. I will just give one example what we have been pushing, that everybody needs a house. We have this housing first approach that maybe you have also seen in international media. Finland is one of the only countries where homelessness is actually going down, not going up. Hopefully something for you to learn. This is just a very short examples, and hopefully we get more inspiration from other cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanna. Do I have a mic? Yeah. Thank you, Sanna. I really recommend to visit the library. I have a chance to be there last month or 2 months ago, and it's really impressive, one word. And there are many libraries around Europe, but this is something you need to see, and you need to experience. Well, another thing you should experience is the parking lot for 9,000 bikes they have in Groningen. And we have an expert from this city of Netherlands, which has 230,000 inhabitants. Benni Leemhuis, who is a member of the city councils for many years, responsible for the mobility, which basically means going by bike in Groningen. And having a parking lot for 9,000 bikes is something such a common, they feel that it's not really sufficient, and they are going to double this parking capacity. So I think this is something we can learn from Benni as well, so please welcome him on stage.
Hello everybody, thank you for having me. First I tell you something, and then I want to show you a lot of pictures of Groningen, and especially the cycling infrastructure, and also the inner city planning. But it's a bit strange to stand here in to tell something about the successes of GroenLinks in Groningen in the north of the Netherlands, because we are in Oslo, and I've seen that in Oslo there have been a lot of new successes in the last period by the Greens, especially in city planning. But still, I think it's nice to tell you something about Groningen, because Groningen is a smaller city, not like capitals like Oslo and Helsinki and so on. And I think that a lot of cities are around 100,000 to 300,000 inhabitants, and so it's maybe interesting to tell something about Groningen. The other odd thing is that I will tell you something about green successes in Groningen that even started before the Green Party existed, but still, because the Green Party is existent in the Netherlands for 30 years, we are in Groningen. We are in the coalitions, in different coalitions since 2002. But there were some young, progressive, social democratic leaders at the time in the 70s. Then they were still young, ambitious, and progressive. That started planning and structuring the city in a way that is good for walking and that is good for bicycles, and which then already reduced the usage of cars drastically. Well, I was asked to tell you something about green successes in Groningen, and the funny thing is I saw a lot of examples in Helsinki which I could tell you something about as well, because we have the ambition to be also CO2 neutral in 2035. We have a plan implemented that looks a bit like we heard about yesterday here in Oslo, and maybe also like the way it's done in Helsinki. And well, I could also tell you something about our new library, which is opening in September, which was a hotly debated issue, and we were on all levels, in the provincial level and in the local level, we were in favor of it. So also there we have a lot in common. But I thought it was good to tell you mostly about cycling and about walking in the city center. And now I will try to tell you where Groningen is. It's in the north of the Netherlands. And there it is, we call it the metropolis of the north. We have about, as you heard already, 230,000 inhabitants. We are the 5th municipality in the Netherlands since this year. And we were the largest party in the local elections. We have about a region of about 450,000 people. We have a lot of jobs. We are, as I already said, the metropolis of the north, so also a lot of jobs, a lot of studying is done in the north, is done in Groningen. We have a lot of students in Groningen, but we also have a lot of cars and much less, we have a lot of bikes, but much less cars. Here is the election result in the last elections. As you can see, we went from 4 to 11 seats. Thank you. And since then, we had 2 new elections for the provincial level and for Europe, and we kept on getting 20% or more. So maybe this is the new normal. I hope so, but we will see. Some touristical slides just to give you an impression of my hometown. And then is, of course, the question, why is Groningen a cycling city? More than 60% of commuting is done by bicycle in the city center. So why is it? And there are a few reasons. Of course, because Groningen it's a very compact city that has also been planning for years to not expand into the countryside, but to keep on getting it compact. We are very flat. That's, of course, we did nothing to be a flat flat town. We have 11 meters of difference, so that's nothing. That makes it easier to bike. But also good plans, good politics, and it started 40 years ago with this mobility, with this circulation plan. And we went on with our cycling strategy and our plan for the city center. And already for many years, the standard is first walking and cycling, then public transport, and only last is the car. It's not that the car can come anywhere, but it has the least priority. Well, I have written some reasons why we are successful, and I won't tell them all to you, but to me very important is you keep the human proportions, the human dimension as a starting point. You have to prioritize walking and cycling, and very important also in our new coalition program is the public space is public. So when you know that cars are parked 90% of the time, you have to do something about that, because that way that space is not public anymore. I won't tell them all, and also the last is very important, keep winning elections. We have a problem in Groningen that's, as I told you already, these are a bit older figures, but we have more than 60% of biking in the city center. But in our region, the car is still very important, and we won't change that overnight. So what we have to do is we have to plan for both ways. Some figures: we have 205 kilometers of special infrastructure. We use a lot of bikes, and we have also very bike lanes that are used very, very intensively. Well, very short about this plan. In 1977, it was decided that you won't drive with your car through the city center anymore. You have to, we divided, well, I was 5 years old. They divided the city center in sectors, and then you couldn't drive through the city center anymore. You, to go from sector to sector, you had to go through the ring. And that, what to me the most important message to every green politician is, it is possible, because we had a city center that was clogged with cars also, and it was because they made a plan and they followed the plan and they went on with it that the city center became more livable and less polluted. This is how the Grote Markt looked in the 60s and the 70s, and well, this is this spot is the same spot as this spot. So we were full of cars. The most important message is the city was full of cars, but you can change it. This is another spot at a great market. This is the same spot. I see all people wanting to make pictures. Again, this is the old situation in the 70s. With a bus station at the Great Market, and then this is the same spot right now. So it's more for cyclists and pedestrians, but also the market is back really on the market. We went on in the 90s. There was a referendum about a road that went through a park. It was very busy. Local shop owners were against closing it because they were afraid that the shops would suffer. There was a referendum, only 51% of the inhabitants were in favor, but now we have a park where no car is driving through, a lot of people are using it, and it's very nice. But also more recently we have new plans. We have made a new structure of all the bike lanes which are prioritized in politics. In the city center we will expand the you want the other picture again? I heard it will be online later, but this one? we are expanding the pedestrian area where also bicycles can go through. We invest in cycling infrastructure around the city, but also through the city center with parking. The bus lanes are moved to the side, on one side 150 meters, the other side 200 meters, so that the public space is getting larger and we can invest in other structures. Parking, it's free at the border of the city, and in the city center this October it will be €4 an hour. So we stimulate also by money people not to park in the city center, and it works very efficiently when you park at the border of town. You get a bus every 10 minutes to the city center, and it's used a lot. People love it a lot. We invest in bike rental and bike parking. And some examples of this new city plan, inner city plan we made, is that this was a street with a lot of buses, a lot of cars. It was very crowded, and this is actually how it is now. This is an artist impression from before, but this is once that an artist impression is the same as reality. I haven't made a new picture for this street because it's still good. Another situation is the Great Market. Also there we have a lot of buses still, and when the buses will get 200 meters farther away, and the new library is open, because to the left there is the new library. Not this building, but behind it. We are planning to improve the Great Market also for walking and cycling. No buses, no cars, no will be on it anymore. Are these the same ladies? Yeah, you tried. You're looking. I haven't noticed that. Yeah, but they're walking briskly. We do other things, small things. We have a pop-up bike parking on the big market when there is no market. You can park your bike there. We invest in cycling street. This is a street that goes from the city center to the campus. We made a plan that to make it a cycling street, and this is how it looks now. Cars are still allowed, but they have the bikes are prioritized. We invest in other kinds of biking infrastructure. Is it too fast? I heard I had 10 minutes, so I think I had to go on. In the city center plan, we make more use of shared space. We add extra biking parking when it's crowded. And this is a funny story. We have a problem with bike parking in the city center because biking is so popular. This is our new problem. I always say, blessed is the city that has a bike parking problem, because then you don't have a car parking problem. When you lay a red carpet on the boardwalk, people don't park their bicycles on it. And this way, it's very cheap, very easy. This way, people don't park their bikes on the spot you don't want to. It's free, this idea. You can use it in your own town. We have the green light at the traffic lights is at the same moment. Almost in every city it doesn't work because it's too chaotic. To us it's a form of harmony to bike together at the same time. We have the right to go right at the traffic light almost everywhere, also when it's red. We have prediction for how long you wait until you can walk. We put literally cyclists first at the traffic light so that they are not behind the fumes. And we have, as I also showed you already, a lot of cycle lanes that are separated. The most important message is this didn't come just from itself. It's because 40 years ago there were young, ambitious, progressive politicians that made plans and stick to it and went on with the same thing. And this is maybe when you're in a town where it's not yet this way. It's possible everywhere as long as you invest in it and you keep on doing real green politics. So thank you for listening and welcome to Groningen.
Thank you, Benni. Well, I was expecting diversity, and Benni said that everything is the same in Groningen and Helsinki. So let's hope at least the third speaker will give us real diversity. And as I said, we have a speaker who is from a completely different setting and the context. Claudia Niessen is the mayor of the small town of Eupen, which is in the German-speaking community in Belgium, and it has about 18,000 inhabitants. And I'm really curious about what the situation is in there, because I'm from the small town, a similar number of people living there, and it's in the rather conservative region as well. So as I said, it's a really different story when you are trying to promote green policies in a small and even conservative region. So please welcome Claudia.
Yes, hello everybody, and I represent here the smallest town of the Congress when I see the big city all around, but I think although the small towns can be a great green politic. So I have today the unusual opportunity to present my hometown and especially our green projects. Eupen is a small Belgian town located in the heart of Europe. The city has a population of 90,530 inhabitants and is situated in the border area between Germany and the Netherlands. Eupen is the seat of the parliament and the government of Belgian German-speaking community, so we are a capital. The city is the administrative center and the capital of German-speaking community. The city has a hospital and is a school site with more than 4,500 students. We also have a university and a professional school, and we always said we are the best protected minority in the world. That's true, Evelyn. Since 2012, Ecolo, the Green Party, is one of the governing parties in the municipality council. In the last year's election, which took place in October, we became the strongest party in the coalition, and I became the first woman to serve as mayor, and 2 women are here, it names vice mayor. Now I like to give you some insights in our city. We are a small city, we are a very traditional city, and we are also a very conservative city. We are rich in architecture. But what was and is of importance of us? So our basic concept in 2012 is shape our city together. Large-scale surveys were concluded, such as Tell Me Our Opinion workshop, city district meetings, and Congress. All of the expressed ideas undergo continued development, and little by little projects we implemented. We actively support neighborhood groups, initiative of different city districts by providing them city staff or develop and implemented projects. Be they structural or selective ones. In recent years, the number of active neighborhood groups has risen from 2 to 6. Furthermore, a number of project-based cities initiative has been set up, such as food sharing, district clean-ups, and community gardens. In order to ensure local anchoring, especially in the neighborhoods which were neglected or that face challenge, we have supported the construction of community houses as well as 2 youth centers. We heard a full-time facilitator and introduced a structural dialogue to provide a professional guidance for our different culture groups. And as the administration machinery is often too slow, we have developed a VIP program. It's a program, it's a district program, and we have implemented it in 2013 with the aim to boost small projects of any kind that promote social cohesion. The annual budget for this VIP program amounts 25,000 euros. Youth association, but also adults who are united under an idea can apply for this program by sending a sample letter or email to the municipality. This is sufficient to account as a request. A counter value should be provided in form of a personal contribution or a final resource. Until now, we have realized many ideas from playground equipment, basketball hoops, colorful chairs for the shopping street, glühwein evening, barbecue, to graffiti tunnels. In order to create meeting place, it requires space. So the entire downtown has transformed from a transit zone to a shared space zone. This before and now it's after. So the works are between 2011 and 2015. But in my taste, there are still too many cars around, and there are still too dominant in the center. On the other hand, we often like to block our routes for encounters, festivals, sport events, diners and blunts, where people of the neighborhood gather in public space and set up in the dining area. So we have very big events in our city. The name of the project which is currently is developed is Carefree Terrace Time, so we try little by little to exclude the car from the city. We are strongly committed to create urban green spaces in the center. Green planning is demanded in all new construction. A small selection of our projects to create of community gardens, flower meadow in public areas, and edible city, planting herbs and berries in the flower beds, planting orchards in the park areas. We have also plans to develop an edible city forest with 300 trees in the next months. In order to keep everything clean, we have made a lot of efforts in the subject of waste prevention. We consistently work together with 2 social enterprises to collect waste which create local jobs and represent a success model of integration. We have initiated countless awareness-raising projects, support gift boxes and food sharing projects. We have developed the District Green Up project. In doing so, we are able to attract local residents who regularly clean their neighborhoods while providing them with municipality equipment, which is now located in a B-room closed in the district. The city cleaning service picked up the garbage after the clean-up operation. Since spring, we have been pursuing the project Plastic-Free Community and banished disposable plastic from the municipality administration. We have been promoting plastic-free events in the city area and established partnership with the local community. We further continue to develop our idea to share district compost. Right now, we have 4 compost seats within the downtown area, and in a few weeks, we will be collecting the compost from seniors in the inner city area with a cargo e-bike. So there are so many projects and so many fields of energy and mobility, but the implementation of all the ideas would just take much time than we have today. That's why I'm absolutely convinced by the African proverb, many little people, many little places, taking many little steps can change the face of the world, so also the small city like Eupen can be green. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. I would like to invite all three of you to our chair, so we have an opportunity to ask you some questions. There is a mic in the room, so we have some time to expand and talk a little bit more what we have already seen. Before we start with the audience, I have do any of you have questions for your counterparts? Because something maybe was interesting in your presentation. Do you want to ask someone something?
There's many things. I think the initiatives are actually, like you said, there are similarities, but then you want to find out more. We also have a lot of this participatory budgeting and really bringing the initiative to the people, what you are exactly doing. So I think we have a lot to learn.
The Groningen municipality just got bigger with 2 rural municipalities which came to Groningen. And at that moment we also said we have as a city also a lot to learn of the rural areas. And what I find very interesting is that in rural areas there's a lot more participation, and I think the projects you showed tell a lot about how much energy there is.
We have no possibility to make other politics than the car, so we very need the help from the other level, and for us it's very difficult to make the efforts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I have actually one question to Claudia. How did you make it to be the biggest in a small conservative town?
Oh, it's a good question.
That is there a kind of is there opposition thinking of what Greens represent, or are you just people feel that you are part of the community? And
I think the big question was before we come in the majority, the politic was not make full time, and I have said I will make this full time, so I have not another job apart, and the people have, think that's a good thing to do this, and to have time to make politics for our town, because before the mayor was also medical, so he has made the both, and so that's...
So you showed commitment.
Yeah, well, just the technical question. I have seen there's been a lot of interest about your presentation, so if you don't mind sharing it with the other participants, we can upload them on the website and send you an email. So there's a possibility you can go through it again.
We don't need to travel to Groningen, you know.
Yeah, it saves
and
some.
it's better than the pictures you made very hastily.
Okay, so now I open the floor for your questions. So if you have some, please raise your hand. We can start right here and then go there.
Magdalena Davies. I have a question for Claudia. You were talking about those small projects that you fund and that your citizens can apply by email or by letter. So does it work on a principle of first in best, best dressed, which means whoever writes first will get funded, and once the money's run out, then you don't fund it, and who decides on that? Thank you.
That's a college of the mayor who decide if the project will be done or not, but who arrives the first, he becomes the budget. Yeah.
Okay, there was a question on there. Yeah, another mic.
Hello, my name is Sarah, and I come from the south coast, a small city on the south coast of England. My city is very conservative. It's got an older population, and we've got a lot of concern about people with disabilities. So I'm campaigning for cycling and better shared space. But I get a lot of opposition from the conservative, older people in my city, and also one of my councillors is registered blind. How do we, have you had, when you put in your shared spaces, have you had any opposition from older people who are worried about bikes going really fast past them? And what is the view of people with disabilities, especially the blind?
So I have the same question to you.
Well, it's a good question, and as I said to you, blessed is the city that has a bike parking problem. Still, that is a real problem, and especially for blind people, people with disabilities. We have a problem in our city center, so we're investing in new underground parking facilities below the market, but that's very expensive. With all the plans for the restructuring of the streets, we cooperate with the union of, well, I don't know how it's called in English, but of blind and blind people. So we also invest in systems so they have a path to walk on. But we had this opposition already in the 70s when the first plan was made. It was also an idea that the city would become unlivable, and now a lot of people also say it's a problem with bikes. But then I always ask back, do you want all these people to come by car? And then they know the answer and they want to keep it this way. But yes, it is a challenge, but we cooperate, we talk with people involved in the streets as well, but also certain communities to look at that. So maybe the nice thing for you to tell other people is make pictures of before and after of another spot that they know, that they relate to, so that they can see that it's not that it's possible and that it doesn't answer their fears that they have.
Yes, but we have also the discussion if we show the other pictures, we always have the reaction, yes, it works in the Netherlands because all is so it's not
so
mountains or flat, and it works in Germany but it works not in Eupen.
Yeah. The only thing is do it maybe at a small part of your town, and then you can show it. That's maybe the only real solution. Do it.
In Finland, when the Greens were founded, our first member of the parliament was Kalle Könkkölä, who's himself disabled and very activist in disabled rights. So I think that history brings us very much also ability, and also then must that we have to talk about the disabled rights, and then we have to prove that we really understand and we study but we have been challenged a lot. But I think it mostly comes from the conflict being between pedestrians in general, not only disabled, but pedestrians and cyclists. And in Helsinki we have made decisions that the bike lanes will be totally separate from the pedestrians, because we have had those mixed ones so much, and it is really difficult. So then we just have to invest on the those similar red lines, and then also talk about accessibility at the same time all the time. But it's small things, and then it's very difficult. You have to prove that you are not above other people, that you really understand what we're talking about, and that it is a problem if the bicycles only dominate pedestrians, and it can create problems.
Yeah, maybe I would like to react on what Claudia says, that maybe all of us has sometimes had this kind of opposition that this measure works in Netherlands, Germany, Berlin, whatever. Yeah, and it's really needed for us to find examples which are the most common and most similar to what the cities we live in. So maybe that's a task for the European Greens to give you the opportunity to network with the places which are similar, which have the similar climate, similar landscape, similar number of the citizens, because then it's more easier to argument that, well, it works in Eupen, which is a small conservative town in Belgium, that it could work in all small conservative towns around Europe. So maybe we should work something on this.
Hello, I'm Maret Merisaar from Tallinn City Council Environment Committee, and we have now a couple of projects together with Helsinki City on this coastal tourist ways, and one is on the Eco Islands, on Aegna and Vasikkasaari. And one thing that has made people astonished is that now we are as a Finnish initiative. We are now destroying all the wild roses called Rosa rugosa that came to Estonia 200 years ago, and now they are called invasive species. And do you also have in Helsinki the same problem that now you have to explain to the public why we are destroying all these roses that are growing on the coastland and that are really very tolerant species and smell very good, and do you also destroy them? And maybe it's a good idea to put these plants in road constructions in the middle of this, in this middle ribbon, like in Spain, where there is also, you travel kilometers and kilometers, and there are always these some kind of plants that tolerate dry climate. Because it's so sad that we just destroy all these plants. Yeah.
So if I understood the question right, so it's about this rose that is not...
Rosa rugosa, it's this wild rose that grows on the coastline.
Okay.
Is there, yeah.
Yeah, that I don't recognize that we would have that discussion. We are talking about the species that are brought to Finland and then which are not natural here, but is it the same one? Yeah. For that, we don't have a discussion almost at all. I think people understand that if it's a foreign species, that it has to be destroyed and then something else needs to be come. But we can continue the discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, the question is always what is normal when it's already for so a long time and people consider it normal, so it's difficult to explain. There is a question up down there.
Hi, I'm Hanna from MDG Norway, and I was wondering about something related to demand supply, because when you are politicians high up in green parties, I have been thinking about when you force or you don't want to force something on the people, you know, like you have to use less plastic or you have to use more green energy, I don't know, but do you reflect on a daily basis upon how do you present the little changes that people need to make in a dialogue sort of way? I don't know if that's a question, but you know, because I believe that we have to make the big changes. So that's what I'm hearing from you now. That is a lot of big changes that have been made in many years, you know. So, in my experience, people that when we present them to change that one person has to make a lot of changes in their daily behavior, they get exhausted. So I was wondering if you have any reflections on that question, that issue.
Okay, so if I can wrap it up, so it's like about the radical big changes and the small incremental changes, because sometimes the big radical changes could fear the big opposition because they are too demanding on the citizens. Yeah. So maybe sometimes the strategy could be like the small incremental changes. So what's your experience with these approaches?
I'm very radical. If you will make a big change, you must make it. And have no discussion. You must make it to transform to the share space zone. We have make it, so we are elected all 6 years, so we have all the time. We have time, so we make it in the start. But all the little changes, we work together with association, youth association, social association, so that we implemented the project together.
I think all the changes are happening with the small steps, even the big changes. So, for instance, thinking about food, that is very often it's debated that do we need to change our eating habits, and you know, I don't. The older people don't like vegetables or whatever. It's brought up to the discussion. I think. We have also realized, and that's how we are working, is that you need to, by step, go to the more climate, better climate food. For instance, we made in our schools, we serve meals in our schools, warm lunch. So first it was 1 day per week, it's vegetarian for all. And there was a lot of debate, and there was debate that, you know, kids cannot live and they are going to be hungry and they hate it and what else. and now actually those are one of the most popular foods, and now we are making the next step, like can we also maybe in the care of the elderly talk about vegetarian. There is the same discussion again that, you know, old people cannot live, but if you look at then 100 years back, all the Finnish old people just ate vegetarian mostly. Yeah. So I think in anything you need to make small steps that and also then involve all the others, NGOs, to talk about it, and then you also realize that actually the people are wanting us to make the change. They want to make the structural change because they see that it's important.
Yeah, I think the dilemma you posed is a very big dilemma. Sometimes you have to choose to do it slowly and incrementally. But when you want to make a pedestrian road, yes, it's you can do cars a bit, let them in a bit. So that's how you have to make the decision, stand to it. But of course, you can talk about where it exactly begins and where it exactly ends, and so on. And which.
But you have to decide at once.
Yeah.
Because you have always. They who want absolutely the car and the other, so you have to decide. Yeah.
So it's always choosing between the two, and you can always make an ambitious plan and talk about all the details. That's okay. You talk about it. You make it better for some people and so on. But you also have to really make the big steps because we haven't got a lot of time for a lot of things. So it's a hard combination of the two. I agree.
It is. Yeah.
Okay, so I have over here this third one. So we go back and forth.
Hi, I'm Barbara from Vilvoorde, from Belgium. To continue on one of the big changes, you gave a lot of examples, Sanna, of some of the big changes that happened in Helsinki. You didn't really talk about how you made them happen. So one of the big numbers was 78% of walkers and bikers, public transportation use in the city. How did you achieve that?
I think we are in a similar way, very similar to Groningen, that already from the 70s we have had decision makers, not only Greens, who see the importance of public transportation. So, but there was for a very long time there was a coalition between the right and the Social Democrats that they were the majority together, and they were also at the same time when building, public transportation, but at the same time really also being for the private cars. But when Greens became there in the middle and we broke that coalition, then we started to have real changes, that actually those money that we put to the motorways only for the private cars, we can put that money to the public transportation. It doesn't mean that we are against the cars. I have myself, my family has a car, and we had 3 kids, and I understand all that. But still, sometimes we have to make the political decisions that are ambitious. But I think in Helsinki it came after we were big enough to broke that kind of old coalition. But then, of course, it has demanded a lot of working with different parties, trying to make them convince and change them from the inside, and work with the liberals they have inside of them. So, yeah, it's continuous all the time. It's never ready.
But it's also a strategy of messaging. I never say in Groningen that I want to get all the cars out of the city center. I always say we want much less cars. And somehow when you say we forbid all the cars, they say, oh, these Greens, they always forbid something. But if you say we want much less cars because we want more space for people and more space for being in a good place, then people see the positive side. So it's also the way you tell something. Of course, we want less cars, as little as possible. But when you say we want a more livable city, more people come with you. So it's also messaging and strategy, I think.
Oh, that's a good invitation for the afternoon session, because we have the plenary, which is called Communication Strategies and Green Transformation in Cities. So this basically what Benni says, that it's sometimes not only the hardcore issue what we would like to promote, but it's about the communication strategy with this promotion. Okay, Zoltán, your question? Oh, here.
Hi, I'm Zoltán Zarandi from Budapest, Hungary. If just you close your eyes for just a minute and imagine that we are sitting in a European championship of winning green ideas for good and sustainable urban development in cities, I'm sure that you would all qualify for the finals. And I think that the sweeping victory and breakthrough of the green politicians at the city and town level in Europe is not a coincidence. And I'm sure that your successes are sustainable and your successes are guaranteed if you carry on just like you work right now. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I'd like to also add that in Hungary we are preparing for our local elections this autumn, which will be also a kind of championship between democracy and tyranny, to put it short. And we're planning to have a European kind of conference where you would be all very well received and you would very much welcome, and I would like to invite you all to Hungary, maybe in September, maybe later. The local elections take place in October, around the 23rd of October, which is very important for Hungary because of 1956. Two questions. One question, okay. One question. Then I pick Sanna, if I may. Especially the ideas and the policies that you developed for the immigrants. That's a hot potato topic everywhere, and in Hungary in particular. I'd like to ask you a bit more to elaborate. I know we have very little time, but I'm really curious. The composition, the numbers of your immigrants, the main headlines of your policies, and also the strategy whereby you can actually convince your own Finnish patriotic citizens to support it. So how do you balance between humanism, democracy, and green ideas?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, very good question. I think in Helsinki we are in a way in an easy position because Helsinki residents actually, they favor international connections. They favor that we have also people from elsewhere, much more than in many other cities. So the opposition for that is very small. Also, the populist party in Helsinki is very small. What we try to do is also talk about the good things that people who come with their language skills from the biggest immigrant population being from Russia, then from Estonia, then yes, from Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, and elsewhere as well, that they also are good for the city. They actually run many of our services wouldn't work without that, because we are lack of people to work on. But then, for instance, thinking of this undocumented migrants, that was a really hot debate, because then we needed to say that yes, although these people don't have a right to be here because of the government decisions, we still have to take care of them, and that's something we just have to do. It's our right, and I think also from there, in Helsinki we didn't face that opposition that heavily, but it came from all the other parts of Finland. So I got threats, and really, it was really not nice at all. But I think there it helped that the other parties also we could be in majority and we could make that decision. But I can say that it's not going to be easy. Also, what will happen in the coming years, I think the debates are going to be very hot. And there, I think the cities need to work together. And not only thinking of the asylum or refugees, but then also Roma, other issues that people don't like on the streets. How we can still work. For instance, in Finland, Helsinki, we have a shelter for the Roma. We have a place where they can wash their clothes and etc. We have to find those good practices. We can work, and of course, then all the time talk about the root causes. That we need to actually do something for the root cause with the development aid, with the EU really saying that Romania and Bulgaria, Hungary need to act for their own citizens and all that.
Okay, thank you. That was here.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jos. I'm a deputy mayor in a town in Brussels. Thank you all for your contributions. I learned a lot, and I have one specific question to Mr. Leemhuis about cycling in Groningen. We are also trying to make a transition to more cycling because our town is still very car dominated, and I was very inspired by the pop-up biking park on the Great Market. We also have a great market space that we want to make car free. But we have still a bigger, we got a lot bigger half a year ago, but our coalition partner is still bigger than us, and we are meeting a lot of resistance from the neighborhood as well, if we want to eradicate parking space. And so my question to you is, did you in Groningen had the same kind of resistance with the neighborhood, and how did, if yes, how did you deal with it, and how did you convince your coalition partners to make it car-free? Thanks.
Well, thank you, and especially I want to congratulate you for your great results in Brussels, because I read it in the news and it was incredible. Well, there are a few things to say about it. In the 70s, these young, progressive, ambitious social democrats, they were not very much talking to the people in the city center. They just decided. And maybe that's not the best way to do it, because still older people in Groningen talk about the traumatic experience of these young vice mayors that did it just overnight. But the positive side of it is they did it, and now almost everybody wants to keep it this way. The most funny story was that a few years ago, the Conservative Liberal Party, which is in government in the Netherlands and is always in favor of entrepreneurs, they asked if a street in the city center could be closed for cars because the entrepreneurs asked for it. So sometimes you have to disrupt to make the new situation be seen. Maybe not in the way as it was done in the 70s then, but still, sometimes you have to show it and then people see the positive side of it. But I think you could be inspired also by how they did it in Ghent. We also tried it did it also in Groningen to make these streets livable streets, so people can experience it for 1 month, 2 months, and they can see it themselves. Maybe it's also don't plan too much, but try it out and show it to people, and then they see it themselves.
Okay, there's a question over here. Yeah.
Knut from the Green Party in Norway, and I would like to ask you how you solved the problem with creating compact cities in the same time as you try to protect all green areas in every city, because as Greens we have this instinct to protect every green spot, every garden, every open area, but we really need to create more compact cities where it's shorter ways to travel between places and more places to live for people. So how do you solve that dilemma?
If I start...
Well, I have not solved it.
Yeah, you don't understand.
It's not what you have.
I don't think we have solved it. No. In the last election, we were blamed a lot that we want to In the new urban planning, we are going to destroy some of the parks and forests in Helsinki, although we had done everything we could to really protect them, because we have this huge growth, so we need to have it lead it to somewhere, and we are going to break down the motorways and make them a normal way or a street, and then we are going to build houses around them, and then a tram line. But this was a big opposition from especially on the spots where there were some parks or forests nearby, and then of course Greens were blamed that you are the ones who are going to build all the green areas. What we did is that we, in all the urban planning, we are trying to, and we have so far also been able to have a very protected, how to say, green fingers. So they are the, or even now we are wanting to the best parks and forests to be protected like a nature reserve status from the Ministry of Environment. So do things like that. But of course there are always spots where there is some trees growing, and then you have to select, are you going to build a house for 1,000 inhabitants, or is this so important that it needs to be kept? But then we have been adding, for instance, new nature reserves and trying to convince and prove people that we want.
Even when it's not possible to replant a tree in the neighborhood, the developer has to give a certain amount to a fund, which will be used by the city to put in other places parks. So these are ways to make it expensive for a developer to cut a tree. So they will or try to make new plans, or they know they have to pay for this for the cutting of the tree.
And what they pay?
I haven't the amount, but it is enough so that they bring it into their planning. So and we also have, I think that was also in Helsinki, certain protected zones that come from outside of the town into the town, which are where you can build and where you have no, that is much more protected. But it is a big dilemma because, for instance, we have in Holland also the Animal Party, the party which is maybe sometimes a bit more radical in this. They say no tree can never be cut. And I think when you take this very extreme approach, you don't take into account the other things that are also important, reducing the emissions of CO2, making compact cities so that you don't drive a lot and so on. So you have to find ways to be pragmatic, but the other side, make sure that you do investments in green and trees also.
Okay, so there was a question. We have a time for the last question.
Hi, I'm Caroline Conroy from Dublin in Ireland, and we had a great green wave as well. We got 49 local councillors elected, up from 12. So
Wow.
it was brilliant. My question is about homeless. We have a big problem with housing crisis in Ireland, not just Dublin. And you said that you were starting to reduce the number of homelessness. I just wondered how you went about that.
That's a very old tradition in Helsinki that we have had the city-owned rental, and that we have invested, and we have made also plans how to build more and more city rental housing. So I think that goes way back, even before the Greens were there. But then we made a deal with the central government and 10 biggest cities in Finland. There we, that was more than 10 years ago when we made this very big shift in the housing policy, that we will give an apartment to everyone who needs an apartment. So we will shut down the temporary shelters. So we don't have them. We have one for 50 places in Helsinki. But that was kind of the major shift that we did. It was actually led by a conservative minister at that time, who's now our mayor. So it was not the initiative coming from the Greens, but we were very much supporting. Maybe it was the reason why it was so successful that it came from the Conservatives. So then it really made everybody to be part of the program. So Helsinki then invested a lot in building houses also for the mental health rehabilitation phase and drug addicts who are trying to get out, things like that. So we made a long-term plan, and I'm happy to share some of the ideas what we did. But we as a Greens, we have been defending that we have to continue, that we have proven that it works, that we have vicious problems in the society, many others as well, and we have to use this as an example that you can actually turn very difficult social problems, you can turn the development to the positive, but then it requires that all parties work together. It requires that also the federal state, and then you cannot do in 4 years, but you really need 10 or more years. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. We have come to an end, and and I would like to thank you, all three of you, for your contribution, and I hope it was really inspiring for all of us, and we can learn a lot from your examples. And so I'd like to ask for an applause